best way to live in this world as imperfect people is to find a community of others who are imperfect too. Technology, communication, and efficiency are faster than ever. Yet somehow we feel more distant than ever. We can reach each other in seconds, but genuine connection still feels hard. At Lakeview Church, we are committed to creating spaces where people can truly belong, and we are grateful for a culture that has a commitment to community.
Amen. Good morning, everyone. Praise God. I just want to let you know that this new translation that Troy mentioned also translates my accent. So if you cannot recognize it, you can switch to this app and it will give you perfect English. So relax. Now, last week we had some very bad development in my family. They've been improving or upgrading Infinity or Xfinity, a Comcast network on my street, just on my street. And my internet was interrupted at home. And you know, we have a lot of internet systems running in my home. My sprinkler system is internet-based, so my grass did not receive water. My pool pump is scheduled by internet, so my pool got dirty. Lighting, we have a home office. The worst part of it, I have boys, my children, who use internet a lot to do homework, some classes online that they take, remote classes, distance learning. And so all of it was interrupted. And I had this last week, I had an extremely busy week. I mean, a lot of different things just happened in the 1 week, in 1 day actually, Friday. And on top of it all, I had internet interrupted. So now I had to run around the city trying to find a hotspot, going back to my office, and it was just a mess. So I called Comcast, and you know, it's very hard to reach them. They just, when I called the regular number, they would say, we know about the outage in your area, so just wait until we fix it. And I had to do a lot of hoops to go around this. I called my business line from my office, and I said, actually, I am calling to my home, about my home internet. And they said, hold on, we will transfer you there. And this way, I could circumvent the system and actually get to technical support. And I got a guy with very heavy accent, so don't complain about my accent. Extremely difficult accent. And I was talking to him, and he was helping me. He apologized, he gave me a lot of credits, he gave me, upgraded my system for free, sent me my new modem, gave me like, I don't even know how many, what the amount of credit that he put in my account. He did several. And then at the end of the day, he says, sir, I'm going to give you a free hotspot so that if they fix the network, you will just have our Xfinity. It's on the house. I'm going to just personal hotspot for you. And I'm like, okay, fine. That will make me happy. And so he's doing all this stuff, and he's like, can you give me your Social Security? And I'm like, okay, fine, I'm going to give you Social Security. But I'm nervous right now because the guy is speaking like very heavy, you know, this Indian kind of an accent. And then he says, can you give me your date of birth? I am very nervous right now. I'm giving him date of birth. Yes, I did. And then he says, sir, I'm going to send you some equipment to your home. Can you give me your credit card number? And at that point, I said, look, are you are you for real? Do you work for Comcast or you're one of those Indian scammers? And he tells me, he says, sir, as a matter of fact, I am from India. And I said, at that moment, I snapped. I said, okay, thank you very much for all that you've done for me. I am going to hang up and call Comcast again. So that's what I did. I did call Comcast again through all these, hoops that I have. And I told them, I said, can you connect me to the security team at Comcast? And they said, okay, fine. I said, I have a suspicion that I have a fraud. They connected me to the security team, and I said, look, can you check up my account because I just talked to an Indian guy, and he asked for my social security, date of birth, and a credit card. Can you check if that's legit because I'm nervous? And so the security team checked, and they're like, well, we don't know why he asked for your social security and the credit card, but that guy, his name, marketing, is legit. He actually works for Comcast. But we don't know why he asked for the credit card, so go figure. The long story short, they tried to fix my network, and then they said, look, we upgraded your system in the area so that you have a better services, but your modem is obsolete, is too old. It's over, I've been having this for over 10 years. And they said, listen what they said. They said, in order for your old modem to work with our system, well, we need to upgrade your modem. We need to send you another device. That old modem will no longer be compatible with our new system, will not be able to handle the traffic. Now, I, at that moment, remembered that for many times on my phone, I've been receiving text messages from Comcast saying, before this whole ordeal, your modem is old, you need to upgrade it, click on this link, and request a new modem. And each time when I received this message, what did I do? Deleted it and ignored it. Why did I do that? Because I didn't have time. The modem was working at that time, so who cares? Yes, I thought that at a certain point I will upgrade it, but not today. Today is not the day. I don't have time for it. I was just too busy. I was in a hurry. I was running around until my life completely stopped. Because imagine you're completely disconnected. And that's what I told this Indian guy. I said, I'm living in the United States. We don't survive without internet. I tried to explain to him. I said, do you understand that? We don't have cows here. We don't have elephants. We have internet. That's all what we have. I need it desperately. And the guy said, sir, I understand, but you have to listen to me. And he was talking like this, in this way. And the bottom line was that we got completely disconnected. My children was complaining. My wife just stopped loving me for this period of time. And it was a complete disaster. And here is what happened Friday. So basically they decided to send me this modem. I was looking mail every day, nothing worked. Saturday, my wife called me. Actually, what she did, there was a Comcast truck roaming in the neighborhood. So my wife ran to the truck. That's how desperate we was. And the guy was like, I am not in this field. I am checking the wires. And she's like, we don't have internet. So she basically forced him to help us. And he said, well, I don't have modems, but you can go to Westfield into the store, pick up the modem. You don't have to wait until it comes in the mail. And you will install it, and this way it's going to work. So she calls me Saturday evening. I was in the office because there is an internet in my office. And she's like, I got a modem. So I had to go to home. I connected it, and guess what? Yesterday evening, we've got our lives back. We got internet, so my kids came back home because they left our home. They were somewhere else. They came back home. Everyone was back on the screen. Everybody was happy. And we basically yesterday indulged finally on the Wi-Fi. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this, and this is important, because we are in this series called Committed to Community. And that has connection, trust me. Just let me work on this. Committed to Community, we are living in a very fast-paced, fast-paced, fast-forward kind of a society. We are always running forward. We are busy with everything. And I noticed this week when I analyzed what was happening, my schedule and what we were doing, that sometimes we are so busy that we don't even notice that we miss important things. And so this message today, when we are talking about the community, is about slowing down so that we can catch up. Slowing down so that we can catch up to rest, to the rhythm of the Lord, so that we can catch up to our soul in silence, and slowing down so that we can catch up to love well those people who are around us. Because I'm not going to break a news if I tell you, if you're very busy and in a hurry, you cannot love well. That's just the way how it works. And I want to give you, before I continue, give you this quote by Dallas Willard. As you know, this is probably one of the most influential figure in my spiritual development, who said once, hurry is the greatest enemy of spiritual life in our day. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Now, I pray that by the end of this message today, you will learn how slowing down help us to reconnect with God, help us to reconnect with our soul, and that's kind of weird. Am I disconnected with my soul? Well, that's how we live. We are so busy sometimes that we don't feel anything anymore. We burn out. We don't function as we're supposed to. And finally, reconnect with other people around us. Did you know that hurry is the major factor in broken relationships, in broken marriages, in fragmentation of society in general? We are just so busy that we don't have time to connect anymore. And before I move forward, I just want to give you this take home phrase, the fastest way to God. And it's contradiction, but I like contradictions because that kind of raise curiosity in you and help you to memorize. The fastest way to God, your soul and others, is slowing down. And I wanted to give you the anchor scripture today. Some of you know this scripture, but it's so important in this society. Jesus was teaching his disciples and giving some very important truths about spiritual world. And it's funny that Jesus, if you ask Jesus, how is your spiritual life? Jesus will say, what? What do you mean? Because in this culture, we kind of separate those two. There is a spiritual life when we go to church, when we go to groups, when we go to prayer, and there is a secular life when we go to business, to to place of employment and stuff like this. For Jesus, there was no separation. Everything was spiritual for Jesus. Because Jesus understood that when you're doing your work, it's a spiritual thing. When you're mowing your grass, it's a spiritual thing. When you go to the marketplace, it's a spiritual thing. So here is the phrase that I want to share with you. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. This is the most urgent need for people today, to find the rest for your souls. With all our busyness, with all our commitment, with all our schedules that we have, I am even afraid to take a look at my to-do list, what it is in the list. Each time when I look at the list, I lose sleep as to what it is needs to be done. I like a phrase by Corrie ten Boom, who once says, if the devil can make us bad or sin, he will make us busy. In many cases, devil cannot destroy you front-wise. He needs to circumvent, or he needs to detour, he needs to create a plot. And that plot, that plan that he has is busyness. So we're just busy running from one place to another, running on the highway, running on the meetings, appointments, and we are so busy that we forget the important stuff. I mean, I am the least of a father when I'm a busy man. I am a worse of a husband when I am doing all my time, giving all my time and all my energy to all my clients and people who need me all over the place, and I come home spent and have very little to offer to people who matter the most. Jesus says, come to me with all of this stuff and commitments that you have, and I give you rest, because busyness is something that not only separates us from people, but also separates us from God. And as you know, in the church we teach that what separates us from God is sin. Let me just rephrase it. What separates us from God is our busyness. The devil uses busyness to keep us from the rest only Jesus can give. We're running around in our lives, and at a certain point we realize that we missed the most important things in life. So with that, I want to look at this first point that I mentioned that help us to reconnect to our community, commitment to community, and that would be rest. We do need rest. God created the world in a pattern that incorporated Sabbath, 7 days. And as you know, God doesn't need rest. Why did God rest on the 7 days? To model for us this pattern of work and rest. Unfortunately, we don't celebrate rest anymore. Unfortunately, we don't do it in our lives. We are so busy that we try to cut corners, and we don't realize that this is something that so important for us to be productive, and interruption is critically important. I read about a meeting in 1967 by Subcommittee for Time Management, who discovered that in 20 years, meaning somewhere in the mid-1980s, we would need to work, that was the report, we would need to work only 22 hours a day. I mean, a week. And we would have only about 20 weeks, working weeks in a year, instead of 55. And the problem that they voiced was, what would the population do with all the time that would be available for them? So 1985 came and gone, and we never seen that. So we've got this technology, we've got all this automation, we've got this robotization, computerization, productivity increase. What about the time? The time never was available, more available than it was back in 1967. Now we are living in 2025, and we are still living in this fast-paced society. I mean, we love speed. That's why we have fast food. Nobody likes Domino pizza, but we like the fact that they promise to deliver pizza in 30 minutes or less. That's why it's so popular. The pizza is not even that good. I read about the hospital that promised patients not to stay more than 30 minutes in ER. And their patients list increased 33% immediately because we don't want to wait. Somebody said that even instant gratification is not instant enough for us nowadays. We like to have all these devices that increase productivity. And with all these devices, somehow we came to a moment where we are always working. Like, I had a person texting me around 11 p.m. in the evening asking questions. So I'm still working at 11 p.m. in the evening, answering the questions all the time. They can fetch you in the middle of the night and ask questions. And so in all this busyness, Jesus models the life of this healthy pattern, work and rest, and also offers an invitation, come to me. I will teach you and I will give you rest. Saint Augustine once says, you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. So no matter what you do, we have, some psychologists says that this society suffers from pandemic of being in a hurry. And it's a pandemic, it's a pandemic proportions. And I pray that today you make this decision that no matter what's happening in your life, no matter how big of the to-do list in your life, you give this into God's hand and trust Him that universe is not going to fall apart only because you could not fulfill some of the commitments that you put in your to-do list. And before I move on, I just want you to think about this. We catch up to God's rhythm when we accept Jesus' invitation to rest. Remember, Jesus invites us not to run with Him. I don't know if you run in the morning, if you have a running partner, that's great to do so. But Jesus never ran. Did you notice that? He always walked, and He invites us to walk with Him. Jesus have a pace, 3.3 miles an hour. And this is the kind of pace that allow you to form relationship with him. You cannot form relationship with Jesus in a hurry way. In fact, you cannot forge any relationship in a speedy way. Relationships take time. The reason why we created groups is not to give you some more information, not to give you some more theology. No. The reason why we created groups, and you're welcome to sign up for one, is to interrupt our hurry, just intentionally interrupt it, and invest in something that matters most, which is relationship. Because Jesus did not teach people, Jesus showed people, his disciples, how to live. Jesus invite people to follow him. You cannot follow Jesus by running ahead of him. 3.3 miles an hour. Some of you today need to slow down to catch up with Jesus' written. Pastor Oleg, I don't hear Jesus' voice anymore. Well, exactly, that's why I'm here today. Maybe you need to slow down. Pastor Oleg, how come I cannot recognize his voice? You need to slow down, that's why. He is way behind you. Slow down to catch up. And this is a little bit different twist to this. It's a little bit more on slow down, but it actually goes deeper than that. It's a silence. See, we are scared of silence in this society. And me, being the way how I am, I just don't like silence. In the conversation, for example, I start first. And I'm talking all the time. Why? Because, like, for example, if you sit together somewhere in the room, it's awkward. We call it awkward silence. Silence never was intended to be awkward. It's a practice that we or experience or space that we lost the kind of mastery that we lost a long time ago. Let me just give you this story, and I will talk about this silence a little bit. In Mark 6 and starting with verse story, the apostle gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. A busy schedule. A lot of different things they accomplished. Now, I want you to pay attention. If I look at the situation, I would call it momentum. And I would say, hey guys, you accomplished a lot, go ahead and do some more. That's just me. I am all about production. I'm all about effectiveness. Do you know that relationships are extremely inefficient? I like robots because they are super efficient. They don't care about relationships. If you invest in a relationship, this is the least efficient kind of investment of your time. It takes time. And so then, because so many people were coming and going, that they did not even have a chance to eat. My question to you is this: do you have kind of life that you don't even have a chance to eat? And I'm not talking about McDonald's. I'm not talking about fast food. I'm not talking about grabbing a sandwich on the way to work. I'm talking about sitting, eating, having conversation maybe, or silence, enjoying every bite, and being present in the moment. That's what I'm talking about. So, and I'm not talking about eating before the screen either. That's another thing that we do nowadays. We just like to escape into the screen while we are eating. That they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourself to a quiet place and get some rest. Now, this is the point, listen. I don't understand Jesus who interrupted this momentum. And he says, come with me to this deserted place that is filled with silence. See, the thing is with us is that when we have a moment to ourselves, we immediately try to fill it with something like news, like music, conversation over the phone with your sister, with your brother, with your sibling, with your friends. We don't want to have silence because silence to us is scary. And yet silence is where God dwells. And let me tell you this. Remember God was showing the vision to prophet or phenomena, demonstrated phenomena. And God shows the thunder and fire and storm. And God says, and there was no God in there. And then after each phenomena, they came to a moment of silence. And yet quiet voice and God was in there. In this quiet, Jesus started his career, ministry, in the desert. He was tempted by the devil. It was a deserted place. After each breakthrough, when Jesus fed 500 people, that was a tremendous miracle. They were moved, the disciples and Jesus, to a deserted place, silence. I wanted to ask you this question before I move on. Do you think this week you can try this challenge to eat food without screen at least once a week or noise? Can you just try me? Can you this week find a time and place when you can just sit down and be in silence for like 10 minutes? Can you try that? Now let me ask you this question even. Do you know that silence is not escapism, it's attentiveness. It's you not running away to the desert, but open up to hear, to listen to what God is talking about. In fact, I wanna start this right now. Can we, for a short period of time, nobody is talking, nobody is doing anything, let's just be silent for a moment. All right? Ready? Go. Now, while you're in silence, can you tell God, here I am, your servant, listening. Can you say this right now? Talk to me, God. I remember a story. One writer wrote in his book, don't remember exactly the source, but it's a known story about some Westerners visiting Africa, and native people were showing them way through a jungle, and they were going very fast through one place, from one place to another place. They would wake up in the morning, get everything together because they needed to reach the destination. And at a certain point, these native people stopped moving. They wake up in the morning, they were just sitting in the circle. So the Westerners got all frustrated. And they said, why aren't you packing? We need to go, we need to go, we need to go. That's me talking like all the time. And the native people, the guides, said, we can't go anymore. And so the Westerners were like, why not? Through the translator. And the native people said, we need to wait until our souls catch up with our bodies. My question to you is this: who of you need today that your soul catches up with your body? If you feel like you don't have these emotions anymore, if you feel like you're completely overwhelmed, if you feel like you're irritated and angry and snapping, and especially towards the loved ones, maybe you need to wait until your soul catches up with your body. What do you feel when you were in silence a few minutes ago, right now, a few moments ago? That's what I want you to practice this week before we come back next Sunday and share with me the experience next Sunday, possibly. Henry Newman once says, without silence and solitude, it is virtually impossible to live a spiritual life. To catch up to our souls, when we embrace silence and give God our full, we catch up to our souls when we embrace silence and give God our full, undivided attention. That's why communities are so fragmented. That's why we cannot even find time during the week to come together and fellowship together. We just don't have time. We would rather do something else. And that's why I invite you to practice this week. And finally, I'm finishing with this last point in forming meaningful community. It's love. See, sometimes it's hard to love well, because when you are so busy in a hurry all the time, you don't have time to foster that which is most important in life. I remember a story about this young guy who worked really hard, and he earned some money and bought an expensive car. I think it was Ferrari or something. And as he was driving through the streets in the city, he heard this loud bam. Somebody or something hit the car. So he stopped the car, got out, and yeah, sure enough, on the door there was this big dent from the brick. He looked around and he saw this boy on the street, and he was going away. So the guy jumped out and ran after the boy because he wanted to know what is this all about, this act of vandalism. And so he caught the boy, and the boy was crying. He says, thank you for stopping. Thank you for stopping. And so the driver was like, what's going on? He says, my brother fell out of his wheelchair. He was handicapped, and he is big. I cannot put him back, and he is hurt, and I cannot stop anybody. Nobody would stop. I was trying, I was screaming, I was waving, and finally I got a brick and threw it in your car, and thank you for stopping. So the driver, fought this lump in his throat because he saw this picture, this injured, handicapped fellow. He helped him back on the wheelchair, and he says, I decided not to ever remove the dent from my car to remember to stop sometimes in life when I see that somebody is screaming for help. And here's the thing. Jesus, if we were to pattern Jesus' life or follow Jesus, he never minded. He never was angry to interrupt his mission. You just look, this woman with the issue of blood interrupted him in a way, and he gave her an attention. This procession of the dead boy, and even, sick people or other situations, and even though Jesus was on the mission, he did not mind stopping and giving attention. He was not in a hurry. Jesus was never in a hurry. Even when Lazarus died, he was not in a hurry. That's why he loved well. I wonder if some of you today needed a brick to your side to stop your speedy procession. Someone said that a person is defined by how he reacts to an interruption. I want to challenge today you, when you go home this week, to learn to walk instead of running. And that's a challenge to me. Like, what if this week you, on purpose, instead of a speed line, because I drive only left lines. I don't know what it is to ride on the right lane. I don't know. So what if you intentionally this week try to ride in the right lane? What if this week intentionally when you go to the store you stay in the longest lane? What if this week you go to the doctor's office or any other appointments, and instead of getting your device immediately, just sit there silently? I'm challenging you this. To learn how to connect with yourself, how to rest, and how to love. What if this week you are sensitive enough to see somebody waving to you in the streets, asking for help? Maybe it's your relative, maybe it's a person in the church, in your group community, maybe it's a stranger, maybe it's a person, your coworker, waving, and you never seen it because of your fast pace. Pastor John Orberg wrote, "Hurry is not just a disordered schedule. Hurry is disordered heart." And I'm finishing with this. We catch up to people when we slow down to love patiently and be present. Love your spouses patiently. Love your church people patiently. Love your children patiently. I will be completely open to say that I would love somebody to come to me and teach me patience and teach me how to love patiently. 1 Corinthians 13:4, Apostle Paul writes, love is number one, what? Patient. Love cannot be impatient. In fact, love and hurry, it's a contradiction. You cannot love when you are hurrying. They are on the opposite sides. Love is patient. So today, our children made a little stone from our lake. And these stones been here long before we came to this place, before I came to this country, before I even was born. The stones were there at the lake. And some of the stones will be long after I leave this earth. But we collected the stones, and our children wrote a little word, slow, in it. I want you to take them as a token of remembrance to slow down in your life. Just keep them somewhere in your pocket, in your car, in your desk. Slow down to catch up with Jesus. Slow down to catch up with your soul. Slow down to catch up with people around you. Close your eyes.